And is there anyone waiting to come in?
Nope.
Okay, so morning Cold Spring, we're having a business meeting this morning, opening at, and I can't see the clock, 11:38. We have had an executive session and taken a vote in that session related to employment. Should reference be made to the vote?
The vote should be made in open session.
The vote should, so let us redo the vote in open session. So if you would like to make your motion again.
So I would like to make a motion to hire Lillian Moser as the seasonal event coordinator at an hourly wage of $25 an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any recusals or abstentions?
Yes.
And you are citing a relationship with the applicant, a neighborly relationship with the applicant. I mean, okay. One of the applicants, I should say. Okay, so now a very brief background. Eliza, as part of, before she was trustee, in her role as Chamber of Commerce, had done research on occupancy taxes and the potential benefit for local governments. She had initial discussions at the county level. Right now, we do not, as a municipality under New York state law, we do not have the capacity to impose taxes at the local level. It's done at the town and county level. Subsequently, we learned that the state assembly and state senate can sponsor a home rule request from a municipality to enable that municipality to impose a local tax. The benefit of this, because we do not share sales tax with, the county does not share sales tax with us, is that an occupancy tax on hotels, motels, of which we have none. We do have beds and breakfast and short-term rentals. That would be revenue directly to the village, where the impact of those uses is felt to help us offset costs. We spoke with, Tweeps and I met with Senator James Skoufis, who is willing to be our Senate sponsor. Catherine and Eliza, I believe. Catherine spoke with Sandy Galiff's office. She's willing to be our assembly sponsor. This is a long process. This is a step one that says, these two assembly and senate members say we would agree to sponsor the village of Cold Spring in its request for home rule on this matter. From there, it is a public process. We have to pass a local law. We have to have public hearing, all of that. So this is just kicking it off to make sure that it's on the legislative calendar. Any discussion or questions?
You know, I'm in favor of it. I have a feeling that people have to understand that tourism is a partnership. And in order for us to be able to make the village nice for people to come, we need to have the revenue to do that. And it also offsets the burden on the people who are not part of the tourism economy. So
that is sort of the most direct benefit that I see, is that it is a tax that is not imposed on residents. It's a way for us to offset some of the costs that are solely borne by our local taxpayers. Anything from you, Eliza?
No, I've been in support of this kind of tourism tax for a while. I've done a lot of research on it, and I'm glad to see that the village can actually collect it independently. And it means that we'll be able to spend it the way we feel we need to in order to sort of manage tourism and make sure that it doesn't infringe on our community lifestyle or comfort. So it's really important, and it's great to have a revenue stream where tourism pays for itself rather than villagers paying for tourism.
Okay.
And I think it said that we're going for a 5% tax. Is that correct? That's the number we have agreed upon?
That is what is in the initial legislation, and that's driven by the enabling legislation.
Okay.
Laura?
I just wanted to ask process. So, so we passed this resolution, then there is a home rule request.
that then goes to vote in the House and the Senate,
And then we
which
do,
has to vote, it has to pass in the House and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once the state agrees to enable us, then
Then
we
we
begin
have to
our
make a
public
decision.
process. So,
Okay, I
for folks who've been around in the village for a while, this is what it looked like when we requested home rule for resident parking.
okay,
The state needed to say, yes, you can impose a local resident parking district. This is not going to happen instantly. I think it took it took years.
oh, wow, okay.
So
Okay,
that's why
that's helpful.
we're working really hard to get this on the calendar now so they can at
Yeah.
least start. I'm hopeful.
When do they break? Do they break in June?
I think
June.
it's June.
So it might make it on the legislative calendar.
Well, we've been asked to have this discussion
So we
and
could.
express it up there so that it does make the calendar. I'm hoping that the process will be easier than in the past, partially because these two sponsors have both been part of sponsoring legislation for Newburgh, Woodbury, Village of Woodbury and Town of Woodbury. And I think Sandy was part of a similar request in Austining.
Okay.
So they know what they're
Did
doing.
Say how long it took for those municipalities to get an answer?
I think that it was 2 years in Woodbury. I'm not positive. We can double check with the senator's
If it's
staff.
different- If it's a different governor, maybe we'll have.
One can only hope.
I have a question. At the end, it said that the request was good for 3 years. Does that mean that we have to finish our end of it within 3 years, or that this tax can only be enabled for 3 years?
You have to request renewal in the same way that the county, the same way that the county has to request renewal for having its sales tax a percent above what the state establishes every year or every 3 years, we would need to do similarly.
Okay, that's
So
understandable.
right now, this step is all about the enabling legislation.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add, other clerk?
No, this is just step one. We're not allowed to impose a tax. The village is not allowed to impose a tax. So it has to be done through legislation. This is step one. The Senate and the Assembly will hopefully pass it. And we've got, at that point, it's for the governor to sign. Once it happens, then it comes back to us to establish what we can within the guidelines.
Okay, so I would like to move resolution 16-2022, approving the filing of a home rule request. Whereas Article 9 of the New York State Constitution and Section 40 of the Municipal Home Rule Law provide for the passage of a specific bill by the New York State Legislature initiated by a home rule request from local government. And whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Cold Spring wish to send a home rule request in support of Senate Bill number SY 8996 and Assembly Bill number A10205 to amend the New York State tax law in relation to permitting the Village of Cold Spring to oppose a hotel and motel tax. And whereas it is hereby determined that a necessity exists for such legislation in that the Village of Cold Spring does not have the power to enact such legislation by local law. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Cold Spring respectfully submits a home rule request in support of Senate Bill number S8996 and Assembly Bill number A10205 for the amendment to the provisions of the law. May I have a second?
Second.
Everybody wants to
Everybody
second.
wants to
You know
second
what?
that.
Let's give this to Eliza because she did the footwork, the legwork, maybe footwork too. And this is a roll call vote.
Okay, trustee Bazey,
Okay.
trustee Fatty,
Aye.
trustee Starbuck,
Aye.
trustee Woods,
Aye.
and Mayor Foley.
Aye,
Officially adopted on this date by a vote of 5-0.
excellent.
Yay.
And I set poor precedent in mispronouncing Laura's name in the first meeting. It is Bozy.
Oh, okay.
Now we've got Fatty and Bozy all sorted out.
Well, every time I hear your name, I want to correct somebody because I speak Italian.
I say Bozzi, that's okay.
Bozzi.
That's allowed.
Because my boss at Mezzaluna, his name is Aldo Bozzi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from Milano.
Do we have any, we have no public for public comment, right?
Correct.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming in the morning, guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for your work on it, Eliza.
I like that thing.
Likewise.
Like pizza.
Yeah, well, my dad, when he was a kid, everyone pronounced it wrong, because he like grew up with it, Foxy, and then so he just picked an Americanization of it.
My personal trainer, his last name was Paglia, and he said Paglia every time he said, you know, that's what happens, but it's Paglia.
Yeah, it sounds nicer too.
It does.
Yeah.
There's no helping Patty. All right, step one, closer to occupancy tax. Fuck yeah.
Speaking of,
We're not being taped when I said that.
No,
huh?
no,